Recorded in Little Italy, Louisiana. Welcome to Pinstripe Alley, the official Mobcast with A.P. Fanini. Ladies and gentlemen, made men and wise guys alike, welcome back to the Pinstripe Alley official Mobcast with me,
Dead fucking guy.
A.P. Fanini. And I want to say, first off, I apologize to everyone out there for taking so long who listens to the podcast. I apologize. I have been very busy, and I apologize for the delay. I feel like it's been, 3 weeks? And that's probably because it has been. So here we are again, and since we're back again, we're starting with thank you guys who bought the book. The Gatekeepers Part 1 and 2, guys, thank you so much. Still buying it. I'm still working on the audiobook. Got a lot of irons in the pot right now. A lot of things happening as far as the book and stuff. A lot of things I won't go into at the moment because I don't want to give everything away. It's gonna be a crazy year next year if everything goes the way it should. So I can't wait for it. It's going to be a good time. Also, there's going to be more Gatekeeper merchandise come out. Like, actual merchandise is going to come out eventually. I know I mentioned that probably in the last Mobcast, but I mean it this time. Like, there is going to be very soon, actually, because I have the designs for it have like the same pattern and same the same scheme to it. I'll probably have maybe another author come in and add to it, but as is, I'm probably going to have Crystal Guypen do the rest of the art for the merchandise and for the future book covers and such. So yeah, very satisfied with her work. So yeah, thank you guys once again. Still 5 stars for both books. Couldn't ask for more. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Jesus Christ, it feels like it's been too long since I've sat behind this mic. So, Jesus, what's been going on other than that? I can't think of anything other than what we're going to talk about today. And today, I want to talk about probably the greatest show ever made. And a lot of people are going to debate me about that because they're wrong. The Sopranos. The Sopranos, created by David Chase, debuted on HBO in 1999. The pilot episode did. Seems like it was yesterday. The show, and I know for those of you who have never seen it, or you clicked on this link, so obviously you want to hear some insight about it. But that show seems like it came out like way closer of a time than what it did, because it holds up so well. It holds up very well. There's a couple things that are maybe a little dated, but for the most part, the story does not suffer for the fact that it came out so long ago. And I really think that's mostly a part to David Chase, the creator. He's probably been called a genius by a lot of people. I do think he is a genius, but I want to give him. How do I say this? Let's just come right in and be honest. I don't want to be like one of those David Chase's groupie bitches, like, because there's a lot of them. But I feel that he has made a phenomenal piece of work, so he definitely deserves those groupie bitches. But and also be a great cast of actors and actresses, or are they all called actors now? I don't know. But a great cast of acting. And like this, to be honest, I remember watching an interview with James Gandolfini, and the first time that he came to the set for the pilot episode, he just knew in his mind and in his heart that this was going to completely crash and burn, because he said, and I'm kind of paraphrasing, he said that he showed up to the set and he saw just a bunch. He said he figured when he goes to a set, it's going to be like, all these beautiful people in makeup or whatever. And he shows up at a bunch of fat Italians sitting around. He's like, this is going to crash and burn. And look at what happened. It was such a success. And speaking of James Gandolfini, the lead in the show, the actor Anthony Soprano, aka Tony, he did a phenomenal job as Tony Soprano. And I'm not really going to get ahead of myself by mentioning him at first, because before getting into the story, because I just want to point out that he was, I don't want to say such an integral part. I'm going to say he was the integral piece of this show. And I'm going to definitely give all the actors praise within the Mobcast here. I'm going to, go through them as well as I can one by one. There's many characters throughout the span, but I'm going to try to go through the primary ones. And this is probably going to be a part one of the Sopranos lore. I'm going to go into it a little deeper for those who want to follow that. But the Sopranos, it actually, I'm going to start with the beginning of the actual Sopranos lore itself, not the Many Saints of Newark, the prequel, because we'll just go with the Sopranos. In the beginning of the series, we meet Tony Soprano, and he is an already established mob capo regime, meaning he is the captain or a captain, the rank of a captain in his mafia family. Now, he is part of the Jersey mob, which doesn't get, from what I remember, doesn't get a lot of coverage. Most of the time, the Jersey mob was not very much favored by the New York mob. I mean, it's if you're from New York or New Jersey, you probably just understand that, because there's like that hidden rivalry between those two states. But this is a lot about the Jersey mob, and Tony Soprano is part of the Jersey mob. Now, currently, where the show picks up, he is married to his wife Carmelo, and he is, or not Carmelo, excuse me. I hope I didn't pronounce that like that. Carmela, and his two kids, Meadow and AJ, or Anthony Jr. And the two kids, when you see them, they're very young. I don't recall what their exact ages are in the pilot episode, but I mean, we're talking, AJ's probably just now reaching double digit age, and his daughter is, early teens or mid-teens, old enough to sing in the choir in high school. We'll say that. But anyway, so yeah, it starts out with, this entire premise, and the original boss of his family is in prison. So the acting boss is a man named Jackie Aprile, but we'll get into that. But anyway, this family, the entire show revolves around not just Tony Soprano and being a capo in the mafia, but it also revolves around him juggling that life with his family life. And I really feel like that's where the genius of the show comes in. Because you would think immediately, you think it's a show about the mafia. Well, it is a show about the mafia, but it's a show about a certain specific mafia family. And I feel like I'm really glad that, the Sopranos, like, basically, it's almost like it's a pun on like a family show, it's like, I like, you understand what I'm saying, I'm sure. It's just, in my opinion, the way that he, played it off as, there were a lot more nuances within the dialogue and within the storylines of the show than you would really expect. And I think that's what he was going for. And, as a matter of fact, he said that any time that someone would, write like anger mail or hate mail because of there wasn't enough, he said when there was, we want more whacking and less yakking. And he said every time he got a mail like that, he just add more yak. So, I mean, call it spiteful, call it whatever. But the dialogue of the show, it has a lot of, other than hidden humor for the extreme mispronunciation of any word in the English language, Jesus Christ, and historical facts just completely like demolished. So Jackie Aprile, the boss of is current acting boss of the family, friends with Tony, and Tony's uncle, who is Junior Soprano. Now, this is his actual blood uncle. It was his father's brother. And I point that out because a lot of times in Italian mafia culture, or, maybe like American Italian culture in general, someone who's really close to the family, is considered an uncle or a nephew or something like that. Someone who's, a close friend, you call him Uncle So-and-so. Michael Imperioli plays Tony's nephew, and that's the reason why I pointed that out, to say that Junior Soprano is the blood uncle, because they always refer to Christopher Moltisanti or Chrissy as Tony's nephew, when in reality they are not kin by blood at all. He's actually kin by blood to Tony's wife Carmela on that side of the family. So anyway, the show basically revolves around him juggling those two lives, and it revolves around his thought process, and we're able to get a good look into his psyche through the entire show, through these special psychiatry sessions he has with a Dr. Jennifer Melfi, who is played by Lorraine Bracco. And, she did such a good job being the psychiatrist for Tony. Also, before we move on to mentioning a psychiatrist, and a lot of different mobsters in interviews have said this, if anyone would have had a psychiatrist in the mafia and was found out about it, they'd be killed on the spot. They'd instantly be killed, and the psychiatrist, both of them would be killed same day, same time, probably same grave. So for him to have a psychiatrist and be like, damn near acting boss of the family, is absolutely, it's pretty asinine, especially in the eyes of people, but in the eyes of the people who were in the mafia and, the FBI and so on and so forth. But still, though, it was still a good stroke of genius, for us to really see what he's thinking all the time. And some people love the psychiatry scenes and the therapy scenes where he sits down and talks them up, and some people completely skip them. Personally, I think they add a lot of insight to Tony's life and everything around him. I mean, because why wouldn't they? He's sitting there with a psychiatrist. She does a great job. She, for those of you who don't know who the actress is that played her, she is the same actress that played Henry Hill's wife in Goodfellas. And like I said, she was good then. She did great in this, just saying. Probably my favorite performance I've ever seen her in. So yeah. So he's going through this. He needs a psychiatrist because he keeps having these episodes. He begins to black out, deal with depression. He's surrounded by all of his colleagues. Anyway, Jackie Aprile, the boss of the family, who's acting boss, he suffers from cancer. He dies. They appoint the role of acting boss to his uncle. And basically, it's a power struggle between he and his uncle for the longest time. Now, before I go deeper into the story, it's good to know that when James Gandolfini was playing this role, he really had to go to another place in his mind, even to the point where he put a rock in his shoe and walked around with it for a while just so he would be agitated before he came back to play Tony Soprano. So Tony's demeanor throughout the entire show, and it gets a lot more natural as the time goes on. I mean, you can only expect so much from the pilot, and then after that, things kind of, progress as a TV show. But he went through, he definitely stepped into a different dimension altogether whenever he played Tony Soprano. I mean, he said it was a complete like mental 180. Had to psych himself out, just really dig deep to get into this role. So, with that being said, his devotion to the role definitely shone through, because there were scenes in the show where other actors who acted with him said they were absolutely terrified, because there would be scenes where he'd have to get violent or physical or be very aggressive with him. And even Robert Patrick, a lot of you remember him as T-1000. From Terminator 2, he played a character late in the later season of the show, and he said he was absolutely terrified in one scene. So you could tell throughout the show. I mean, he really took this role like seriously, and it's hard to see him do interviews outside of this. From that time where he's talking, with his usual voice or his usual accent, and he's really just kind of calm and chill. It's crazy to see him like that, because it seems like Tony Soprano was just such a natural role. Like that's that's really himself. I mean, I know a lot of people are hearing this going, well, yeah, that's the sign of him being a good actor. And I completely agree with you, but it just it just seems like that would, you see him so much in that role and he flowed so well with it by season 6. Jesus Christ, if you had told me that Gandolfini was an actual fucking mob boss, I would believe you, because he walked his look. I mean, he was a little bigger, I mean, it just worked so well. So yeah, and as his role, in the beginning as acting boss, it's almost like we kind of learn with him or see him grow colder as the sociopath that he is. And his wife in the show, played by Edie Falco, Carmela, you already know that she is very in tune with what Tony does, whether it be with crime, whether it be with having a gumar or a woman on the side, a mistress. She knew about all that. She knows about all that. She's not happy with it, but she knows it goes on. And the funny thing about it is, she knows about all of these things, and it's almost as if like she's trying to grasp something else, but it's by her nature or by her own will that she remains in this life because she likes the lifestyle. She's liked the lifestyle. Even in the first season, she seems very, very level-headed, and I mean, she seems very compassionate or so on. I mean, normally, but as time goes on, especially by the second season, you can see that the times that Carmela's mood really changes is when she is given something of material value by Tony. It is what it is. Like, she definitely equates love to money. They have that conversation in the show. It's something else that they touch upon with her being a mob boss's wife and him being, the breadwinner in organized crime, is that they both, equate love to money. One gives in the sake of love, and one takes, the gift is the sake of love. And I mean, not to say that she doesn't do her, or doesn't do, things around the house or what she would consider duties as a wife, just like he can, did what he would consider duties as a man. But, it shows how both of them, how the life takes its toll on their marriage. But, it doesn't just show them like, immediately divorcing or breaking up. It shows them trying to work it out as the nuclear family and having all of it just go to shit. And but the good thing is, though, is like they give it a good try. And I feel like the way that David Chase wrote the screenplay for the show and the dialogue, the way the chemistry that Carmela and Tony have, like he definitely keeps it in the ballpark of her constantly being frantic about money, but not being completely upfront about it, and Tony being not upfront at all and speaking in complete half-truths the whole time. So it's almost like they both feed each other, and you'll figure out that, if you watch the entire show. I'm sure I will get into that at some point. Yeah, as as Junior, his uncle, he decides to make his uncle the boss of the family. So his uncle Junior, or his full name, by the way, is Corrado Soprano. He is the boss, but he's made boss by Tony because he wants there to basically be a lightning rod, just in case the federal government decides to come crashing down, the FBI. They will have him, and everyone else will have a chance to disperse. And so that's exactly what happens. He ends up going to prison. He does get, sent to prison. Junior does, Tony's uncle Junior. And Tony becomes the street boss, basically. So he's calling the shots. Now, I've gone pretty far in the story, and I think I got a little carried away, but because I haven't even introduced the rest of his family. So Meadow, in many ways to me, even from and this is his daughter Meadow, from the beginning of the episodes or the beginning of the pilot on through, second, third, almost, actually, you know what? We'll say about half of the season, we really get to take a real dip into her mind, with her trip with Tony to different colleges, on her trip with Tony, or her conversations with Tony about, him being in the mafia, you find out that out of the two of their children, she favors him exceptionally. Exceptionally. She is, in a way, a shyster herself. She has her parents mentally on a string, and her existence in the show really, really makes it clear that Tony Soprano and his wife Carmela are both terrible fucking parents. They're absolutely awful. They're terrible parents. Like, they only, it's almost as if like they do just enough to satisfy their own personal requirements on what they believe parenting should be. They definitely put themselves before the needs of their children most of the time. It wouldn't seem like it, but when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, they are like Carmela can say that she's looking after the children in case something happens to Tony, but Carmela is so much out for herself, maybe as much as Tony in this show, like than you could ever imagine. And it just goes to show that like she was a perfect mobster wife, period. If by the joining of two greedy spirits, but yeah. So yeah, that like the show, the son, I'm getting way off track. His son, Anthony Jr., AJ, in the first season, I would say is the one who does probably the most changing the quickest in the show. He progressively becomes more progressive, really. He starts out normal kid, his age, and then as time goes on in every season, Tony's actions really change him. He's such a different person between, I'm not going to judge him between as a kid, but I would say by the third season and the seventh season, he is completely different. And he is transformed this way he's made this transfiguration. He's made it because of a lot of things that Tony's done, between witnessing Tony's actions, Tony's horrible advice, Tony's mental abuse, Tony's at one point physical abuse. Like, so we really see what it does to him. And I will say there are moments in the show where AJ is absolutely insufferable, but not because of his ideals, but just because of his overall whining as a character. But like I said, that was meant to show exactly what Tony, like the type of toxic environment that Tony created for his children, what it would turn them into. And but we'll save that talk of their outcome for the future episodes, or at some point when I actually talk about the finale of the series. But getting back to the psychology of the entire family, they're an absolute mess. They live in a giant house in North Rockaway in New Jersey. Nice neighborhood, same neighborhood as doctors and lawyers and so on and so forth. And the show really captures on, all of the hardships that they face. Not just Tony, not just Carmela. It also shows, the confusion and the having to come to terms with the life of their parents is what the children have to deal with. That's what they have to face. Is they have to deal with the fact that, the media always follows them, and, their father's face is going to be on the news, and it's not going to be for like saving a cat. It's going to be because he is the head of the mafia, which is actually what he is by the end, or the head of that mob family. By the end of the show, that's exactly what he is. So, and they also really have to, I feel like there's a feeling of desperation at some point in the show where the kids are like, they feel like they never had a snowball's chance in hell because of what they were surrounded by. Meadow becomes pretty privy to it and understands that her father is been involved with the mafia since way back when, but it takes AJ a little bit longer. And he's obviously not the sharpest knife in the drawer, which they make very clear in the episodes. So yeah, that's the family. That's the four of them that live under the roof. As far as the rest of the family goes, you meet Carmela's parents later on in the show. But yeah, that's who it really is, centered around the four of them. Now, Jesus Christ, that's the air. Let me turn that off. Hang tight. All right, sorry about that. Anyway, so yeah, the parts of Tony's family on the other side of the family, we have a lot of supporting actors there too. Tony Sirico did a great job as an actor named Paulie Gualtieri, and they call him Paulie Walnuts. One of the members of the mob family that he's in, also the consigliere of the family, Silvio Dante, played by Stephen Van Zandt of the Bruce Springsteen band. He, like a lot of people, did not see that coming. You know, they called him Little Stevie. Well, he does a great job as Silvio. I enjoy his performance a lot. A lot of people enjoy his performance. Another man, Salvatore Bopensiero, they call him Big Pussy or Puss. He plays a very integral role in the first 2 seasons of the show. Vincent Pastore plays Big Puss, and he does a great job too. I find him to be a pretty congenial actor. I find him to be someone who, for the role that he played, someone who you can, be pissed at, but also feel bad for as well. So I feel like he had the audience on a hook as well. He played a very big part in making the finale of season 2 one that will never be forgotten. And you meet Vito and a few other people who join the family on down the road. But those are the major characters of the time. Tony has a friend from the New York faction of the Mafia named John Sacramone, a.k.a. Johnny Sack. And he keeps in close contact with him too. Johnny Sack is like a segue between Tony's family and the New York faction. The New York faction is ran by a man named, almost said Carmine Falcone. This is not Batman. Carmine Lupertazzi is his name. And that's who's running the New York faction at the time. That does change hand later on down the line, but Carmine Lupertazzi is quite an elderly man. So you can tell that he's definitely on his last leg as a mafia boss, and I guess in life in general. So with all these things surrounding Tony, and like these are the 2 families Tony has to juggle, it seems like most of the time Tony's biggest problem is the people around him, or the people that are closest to him that are supposed to be helping him, are the ones that are making the most trouble for him. But it's really, at the end of the day, it's a culture that Tony himself buys into, because he himself is a very impulsive person. Now, to get into Tony's psyche would probably take several mobcasts, but for one of his or several of his most protruding attributes as a person is that he is extremely impulsive, especially when it comes to anger. So this is a guy who is already very quick to anger, has a very short temper, carries a gun on him everywhere he goes. He's already in the mafia, no stranger to killing people for a long time now. And his character is, it's almost as if you would question, how the fuck can this dude be a mafia boss and remain that way for so long when he's quick to just knock someone's shit out right in the middle of anywhere? That's the kind of temper he has. At some point in the episode, like, he gets drunk and goes to some dude's house, and just because he's slightly jealous of a girl he's no longer with, he whips the shit out of some guy. And I mean, he does it, and it's a very, you can tell it's a very petty scene, but he's a very spiteful person. He stays on petty mode. I mean, it's almost like he has to mask it so magnificently and, to seem civilized in front of others. And even that comes off as twisted and haughty, because the guy is just, he's a total sociopath at his core. At his very emotional core, when he has such outbursts, you see the truth about Tony Soprano, and that's that he's a vicious guy, his psyche also contains, the liking for manipulation, and he's very manipulative. They mention in the show that early mental tests on him from school say that he would be considered a leader, and they do mention that. So in the show, Tony, he commands respect everywhere he goes. So in his evolution as a boss, from capo regime, he definitely tries to work his problems out or his impulses out with his psychiatrist, to no avail, because it just morphs from one problem to another. And when I speak of manipulation, you eventually find out that psychiatry or psychiatric, evaluation and treatment will do absolutely nothing for someone like Tony Soprano. And his psychiatrist has to figure that out the hard way, and it takes her 7 fucking seasons, apparently. But yeah. So in his psyche, it's just someone who basically has no limit when it comes to business and when it comes to his own personal pride. And Tony is very prideful. And he also hangs out with a lot of people who are the same way. His nephew, Christopher Moltisanti, that I mentioned earlier, his quote nephew, he is also a very hot-headed person, but was also raised around Tony. So he's very much influenced. He even mentions at some point in the show, that's all he ever wanted to do is be part of the Sopranos gang. And he finally gets in, and he follows after Tony, and he follows in his footsteps, and eventually is set up to become the protege. But that all goes absolutely awry, and we'll get into that, like I said, at the later time when we get into that. But yeah, so Christopher's the exact same way. Everyone around him seems to feed off his energy at some point. And I almost forgot to mention, too, not purposely, it's just that wasn't the focus, especially from the pilot, was Tony has a sister named Janice. And Janice is, for a lack of better words, Janice is absolutely worthless. She contributes, in the grand scheme of things, she contributes nothing but burden, but she does it so well as disguising it. She plays every card she has to get what she wants. So, in a way, she herself, as she and Tony are very much alike, just from different ends of the same spectrum. So his sister Janice comes, back from wherever she's been all this time to live with him. She's broke. She's a bum. She is completely confused about who she is. She is a aspiring hippie slash spiritual person, slash, I don't know. She changed her name to Parvati. Basically, she is an absolute mess. And Tony realizes this, that after she's been there, he's going to have to clean up after her. Another person with their hand out. But once again, these also are developments that Tony himself created. So Tony's mother, who I was also going to mention as well, is also in the first of the show, of the first season. Now, amongst all the people he has to deal with, between the people in his family, or the people in his mob family, or his psychiatrist, or his side chicks, his Gumars, nobody is able to get underneath Tony's skin better than his dear old mother. And I mean, she really is able to get right underneath his skin. She drives him absolutely insane. The entire time, actually, that she's alive in the show. Spoilers, she dies. Sorry. I think I did put that there was going to be spoilers in the description. A little late to bring that up, but whatever. But yeah, his mother drives him absolutely batshit crazy. So, and as a matter of fact, she is a huge contributor to what he has become. So his father was pretty much the same, a sociopath and a very violent man. But by the same token, his mother was also on the same level of sociopath as his father, almost. I mean, right outside of murdering people in cold blood, Livia was very, very... Actually, I can't put one thing on her. Livia had some problems, and I definitely will go into that. As a matter of fact, I think what I'm going to do is to better talk about this, to set it up so that you guys can go through it with me. I'm gonna separate this into separate podcasts, probably 35-40 minutes at a time, maybe an hour, depending on how deep we get into it. But I think I've pretty much laid the groundwork for it. And if you guys have already seen this show and you enjoy it, it'd be nice to step back into it with me, and we'll go through it together. And sometimes I'll have the video playing of the episode, or I'll have an episode of The Sopranos playing to kind of get me in the mood, and maybe I'll go through an entire episode altogether. Who knows? It's up in the air right now. But anyway, a lot of things. Thank you guys so much for ordering the book and such. And also, I've already mentioned a lot of things earlier in the Mobcast. I don't think I want to do it again. I'm sorry. So anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. I will be back hopefully in a week. Sorry for the delay once again. So that's that, and we're going to be back on schedule. So once again, thank you for joining me, and take care.